Welcome back, Sahil.
My pleasure.
We had a lot of interesting comments on your last video where you spoke about your musical journey and how you got into this genre of music and have stood by it and have been promoting it really well. In this video, we'll speak about music production as one of the comments that came on your video, that why don't we cover these kind of aspects of music production as well. Though it's music per se, whichever genre, the kind of equipment is more or less, on similar lines, but could you please share with us what you use?
It is very similar. It is the same kind of equipment, the same plugins, the same DAWs. Just to sort of go over how I've developed as an engineer over the years, a sound engineer. Started out years ago, actually back in 1998. A friend of mine introduced me to a software called CQ Beat, which was a free software to program drums, and N-Track Studio, which was a recording software. And that's kind of just sort of self-taught at home using that, then later advanced to Fruity Loops. In fact, Fruity Loops, I think the entire Indian metal scene ran on Fruity Loops. Every album almost up till 2005 was done on Fruity Loops, at least the drumming on it, or Reason, that was the alternative software used by bands. Till I think Drum Kit from Hell came out, that's kind of when there was a switch and you had better sounding drums with the metal bands in India. Guitar wise, I think there was really nothing. Everyone used to just kind of plug in direct with whatever shitty processor they had, and it was horrible production till I think when the Pod XT came in and people started using the amp modeling quite a bit. I would say it was quite popularized by Warren from Zero, who introduced me to the Pod actually.
Warren Mendoza?
Yeah, Warren Mendoza, Blackstrat Blues from Zero, and then of course he shifted to his Marshall, and then I also got into recording tube amps instead of using amp modeling. But I think bands in India, while doing recording, are very restricted to the home production, to what they can sort of make happen. One, because of lack of knowledge of this music by the major studios in the country. Yeah, because you didn't have many metal bands recording, and there is a certain production style, a certain sound that you aim for, which comes with experience. It's like trying to get me to mix a jazz album, As a sound engineer, I aesthetically understand certain aspects of it, but let's face it, I would not do as good a job as somebody who regularly works and listens to that kind of music. So apart from the first thing being the studios not being really affordable for bands, the other thing is the lack of engineers who specialize in this music. Let me put it that way. Everyone knows how to mix good drums. Everyone knows. There are lots of engineers who can mix good drums, good guitars, fantastic stuff. But would they be able to get you the same impact in a metal recording like, say, an Andy Sneap or somebody else, who's not from India but specializes in this music? Would probably not. It's just your understanding of the dynamics of the music. So it's basically home recording that has kind of been the platform for bands here to kind of record their music. And of course now we're seeing that bands are starting to explore live drumming recording. Normally it's the other way around. You start with badly recorded live drums in some shady studio and maybe then get into more polished sounds, but it was the other way here. We had the Fruity Loops and the Reason, then the Drum Kit from Hell, Superior Drummer, and that's actually what defines the metal sound in terms of production, at least in India. Now you find bands and people promoting live drums. You've also found more metal musicians opening up better studios, and more, because again it's all the evolution of the indie music space that is bringing this about. Not every band could go to an Empire studio or a Yash Raj because it's not affordable for bands, but now bands are starting to invest also in that, into the music, and it's all sort of coming together. So I think production wise also you're seeing the evolution happen, and in terms of the gear and the plugins and the equipment, it's all the same, but yes, it is evolving. You are seeing people moving from processors into analog setups and trying to mic amplifiers, and from using Fruity Loops get into better programming softwares, and shifting to live drums, or just using a lot of sample replacement to kind of find that balance in the metal music and trying to give it that production that it deserves.
Right. So, like in Bollywood, as far as I know, a lot of music producers work at home. They record their track, and I mean, they lay all the tracks very well, and the whole song is kind of more or less finalized. And only then they go to a big studio to record live instruments like flute, shehnai, or drums in certain cases, and also the voice. So, in your productions, how do you approach while making an album or a song?
So whether it's my own personal music or whether it's a band, we start out with a scratch track. So we kind of get the guitar player in, run by the song once, kind of set up the tempo map essentially for the song, do a couple of rough guitar takes, get the song structure sorted out. Because I've always worked with the guitar as the primary instrument, and that's probably because I'm a guitar player first before anything else. So I lay down the guitar tracks to a metronome. Then depending on whether we're doing live drums or programmed drums, we'll take it forward. So if it's live drums, I would generally give the drummer the track with the metronome and tell him, look, come back after 2 weeks when you're ready to play. If it's programmed, these days I outsource all my programming to Hamza Kazi, my drummer from Workshop, who's very good at it. I find it a very tedious process, and I personally, now that I drum a lot more, I don't like the idea of programming. But earlier in the day, I would sit and program with the drummer. Those are always interesting moments, especially if the drummer is not really clued into the theory aspect of playing drums. He can't tell you whether it's the 16th note or the 8th note. He's just like, I play, and you're like, okay, now let me sort of figure that out. So we then get down with the drums. If it's programmed, then we do that. If it's live, then we'll get him the drums recorded. And then over that we'll record the bass, the guitars, and then the vocals, and if there are any keys or effects or anything like that. And then I'll probably sit down and start the mixing and mastering process.
Right, so is the entire album finalized at home, or do you have to go to any of these studios for dubbings or?
No, as of now, well, not now, but previously I had everything done here at my studio. I had a soundproof room also where I started recording live drums.
Right.
But yeah, before that, if I had to do live drums, I would go to a studio and get it done,
Okay.
But otherwise, everything else pretty much I've tracked in my bedroom over the years, and later on down in my studio, which got soundproofed.
Right, so is this how usually bands across the country are working?
Yeah, I think most bands don't even leave the bedroom. It's pretty much get in the bedroom, lay down the guitar tracks, program superior drummer, then get the vocalist and the bass player to play, mix master at home, and put it online.
Right, and how is the response in terms of when the audience listens to such recordings vis-a-vis professionally so-called recorded songs or albums? Do you find a distinct difference, because it's obviously in limited budgets is what you're working. It's not that you would also love to work in larger setups and stuff like that, but unfortunately we this is a route that is to be taken.
Yeah. So in the initial days, you actually had a lot of criticism, and again, this is not just metal. It was the indie space also. Zero, Pentagram, whatever, everybody. So you had your GigPad forums and all, and that's kind of where literally you had every audience member was a critic. It was like, your snare is not sounding good, it sounds like a paper bottle. Like literally to that extent you would hear criticism, and which in a way was effective, because at the end of the day, apart from leading to flame wars on the internet, it actually got people to work on their craft, to kind of get the best sound possible. And that sort of led to, I would say, the birth of what I would call the Indian home producer. And you've got people like Anupam Roy, Keshav Dhar, myself, you have Vishal J. Singh, you've got Adhiraj Singh from Pune, Noiseware. So you have so many people sort of just slowly over the years kind of came up, in the bedroom producer space. So you had guys who knew their stuff, they were able to give you as best a sound as they could, obviously with their, limitations in terms of production, So it's Superior Drummer, Pod, XT Live, which then later became the Axe FX,
Yes.
So, and there are people like me who obviously I don't use an XFX or a pod. I use a Laney amp that I have, and I have two heads, and I use that. So that's kind of happened, and that criticism of the production has gone. I would say it's become less now, because obviously the quality has gone up over the years. There are bands that still maybe can't match that level of production, but I think even the audience today has come to a point kind of where they look at it from a larger picture. Obviously, if as a band you go and ask someone, hey, what did you think of my recording, you will get slammed, if your recording is bad. But I think as a whole, people are listening to the songs now. That little nitty gritty mentality that was there in the past has kind of disappeared now. Because it was the time when they were still fighting cover music versus original music. Now it's a scene where, okay, this is what the band is presenting to me, and I will kind of accept this, But obviously, people still will mention, my last production, there were comments on the guitar tones, there were comments on the drums, good comments because the live drums have happened and stuff like that. So there are people who still take notice, but on the whole, I think the criticism part of it is died down from the way it was, at least.
That's great to know. Speaking of criticism, do we have any dedicated awards in India for metal music?
Yes, actually we do. Rolling Stone has started the Metal Awards, which basically is for metal bands and metal music. The Rolling Stone Metal Awards, and that has kind of been a nice kind of way to acknowledge the work that is being done. By people. Of course, there it's still a bit of a tricky situation when it comes to drummers and producers and all that, because like I said, still not all bands are playing live drums. So to give an award to a drummer for his programmed parts, but again, that is it's inevitable. At some point, it's when there are enough people doing something, you can then start to filter out.
At least it's a start.
It's a start, yeah, which is the most important thing.
Okay. And do you have labels, these music companies, ever approach you knowing that you're popular in colleges? Meaning metal music is popular in colleges with a lot of people, and you are actively doing shows and stuff. So do these music labels approach you for an album production or sponsoring?
No labels actually have taken much interest in metal. It's a simple thing that the business has been crumbling, so to speak.
So when you have Metallica flying down and going to Delhi and Bangalore, you have people coming from Calcutta and Chennai and...
Yeah, but that's Metallica.
Agreed, but then that means there is an audience for this.
Yeah, so I think there is an audience, but is there a spending audience? The first for any music is that the audience, you may have 2 lakh people come for a Indian Ocean concert. Question is, for a label, is not that there are 2 lakh people coming to watch Indian Ocean. Is there how many of those 2 lakh will buy an Indian Ocean CD or download a song or anything? Because unless a label has a 360 deal with you, where you are getting a chunk of the live show as well as the endorsements as well as recording, so then it makes sense for a label to invest in a band. But metal bands, they may be playing a lot of shows, but they still, individual metal bands don't draw as big numbers as a Metallica.
Yeah, but
there is no Indian metal band that can pull even the crowd an Indian Ocean does. If Indian Ocean plays anywhere, any college, 3,000 people guaranteed. A metal band, sadly not. And it is just the way the music is. Though having said that, there Only Much Louder had a label called Counterculture, where they had a deal with EMI for distribution.
Okay.
And they put out some metal band CDs, My record label has recently tied up with Universal Music and EMI as well. And music is coming out. So, it's coming out, but again, it's really now that we'll see that is there a future in selling music of metal bands.
Correct, but at least like in the award thing, this also is a start.
Yeah, it's all a start, And again, I think it's probably good in a way that bands don't have the option of a label. For a simple reason is that they probably become too complacent, It's probably better that bands have to struggle, do 1 or 2 albums, and then a label say, Universal Music will take interest in the scene at the end of the day, because the biggest metal band can still sell a substantial amount of copies in comparison to indie acts or stuff like that. So there is potential, and I think this is going to get explored with due time.
Correct. With the internet coming of age, more or less, and not just in big cities like Bombay, Delhi, but also in smaller towns of the country, We also have services like our own software called Rebeat, which distributes music to digital stores, and you make money when people buy from all over the world, not just India. So we are not limiting our music to the Indian market or Indian listeners only, but across the world. And you never know where your song or album might click, which part of the world. Do you think this is also a viable option for bands to undertake and not run after labels or not run after sponsors and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, like I said, I think that's why the DIY ethic is important. It's important that bands do all this on their own first, putting out their music, via Rebeat or any other platform that allows you, because everyone's doing it these days. There's so many different plans, so for every budget you've got something. At the end of the day, streaming music, even if people buy it, we know the honest truth is that there is no money there.
Primarily in India, I would say.
Anyway, 100 million plays on Spotify and you paid $9,000. There's no argument there, For a band, they look at Spotify, etc. as a medium that somebody can hear their music, connect, become a big enough fan to either buy it digitally or buy a CD. That is where I think the essential...
but the other way this spins off into is getting more shows.
That is...
If you have a lot of listens, doesn't it translate into that band, why don't we call them and, to a
Unfortunately,
festival?
No.
In India again, or you're talking
anywhere,
about?
I think because right now there's so much competition, even for bands to get a simple show, especially out of this country. Almost every offer that a band will get to tour with another bigger band is a buy-on tour. Because that is how bad the industry has been hit.
What does that mean for the audience?
So, for example, a buy-on is if I want to tour with my favorite band, say they are going on the road for 2 months.
Say you want to tour with Metallica, for example.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if Metallica needs the money as much, but a slightly mid-range band, their promoter may say, okay, look, so here I have got 60 shows for you. You need to pay me $200 per show to play.
You need to pay?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Because I'm getting to open for them, it shows on my CV. So at some point when I start touring and I talk to a promoter, he says, okay, you've opened for these guys, so you might have some following. Now I'll pay you.
But it's in a way, if you look at it, it's a business. It's an investment.
All over. Because for example, for Metallica, for example, say their tour would cost them $1 million to take to Europe.
Right.
Part of that $1 million will come from that band that's paying them, and that's because the industry's hit all directions, And even in India, for a young band that wants to play, if they have to do college competitions, there's a registration fee, there is a transport to a college festival, you stay there for a day, you may or may not win, so there is
at your expense.
Yeah, or even if you're doing a show, if you convince some guy in say Delhi to do a show for your band and you're in Bombay, half the time for him it's so difficult to break even because of the way our live industry is. That's another story altogether. So the band probably just goes and plays for travel money. So money is not coming in unless you are a big band playing college festivals where there are budgets.
But to become big, shouldn't a band get into all this? I mean,
correct. So that's what I'm saying.
So
the investment is intense. It's an intense investment essentially.
If you're traveling in India, and if you're performing at various festivals and trying to make a mark, obviously provided you are good, you will be successful.
Yes,
I mean,
of course.
if you're just playing covers and stuff like that, you can say I've heard this 100 times.
Yeah.
So if you are original, you are confident as a band that I know I will do well. I think if a band decides that let me invest 2 years into this and then X amount of money I've saved or asked or borrow or whatever, then can't they take a call that we've done so much, it's not working for us, now let's get back to our so-called...
I think that's pretty much how everyone does it. I mean, the bands that have survived have kind of been able to balance a day job and the music. It's very few people who are sort of full-time. I mean, if they have a full-time musician day job, teaching, playing the more commercial gigs and all that. I mean, best example, Raghu Dikshit, Pentagram, Vishal does Bollywood, that's what will be paying his bills. You have Raghu who does films, down south, and Bollywood also now. So everyone's got something on the side.
But for him to reach there and get noticed and picked up by producers, he also would have struggled a lot and done these things.
Absolutely, right? And again, like I said, it's about that one guy out of 100 that clicks. So it's a difficult situation to be in.
But I mean, like you also in the last part said that you've been at it,
Yeah.
you're still going strong at it. I mean,
Yeah.
because
It's the hope.
It's the hope.
Hope, is what keeps you kind of going.
Correct,
At
correct.
the
It's
end
like
of the day.
Ummeed pe duniya kayam.
Yeah, kind of.
So it was great talking to you again.
My pleasure.
And thanks for sharing these details with others, and I hope they also get inspired and will not give up. And
Yeah, I hope
keep
so
on
too. I
going.
mean, at the end of the day, it's time management, balancing real life and, well, not real life, but music life.
Right. Thanks, Ed.
My pleasure.